Hey, this is Andy Crestadina from Orbit Media Studios, and this is the latest in a series of videos where we are teaching search optimization, analytics, content strategy. This one is all about search, and it's all about one aspect of search, a really important aspect of search, which is about links. It's about authority. It's about how credible a website is, and a key ingredient, a heavily weighted search ranking factor inside Google and search engines, which is basically links to your website, links to your domain, links to your pages. We're going to start here. This is an actual screenshot, an image from Google's original patent on their original algorithm that determined how high different pages rank in search. So one of the things to understand here is that, first of all, I don't know the math. You don't need to know the math. But this little diagram is very revealing because it shows Google's first and one of their greatest innovations, which was that they decided that their algorithm was going to pay attention not just to the page itself, but to whether other pages were linking. This diagram doesn't just show pages, these rectangles, but it shows links, these arrows. And whether or not a page is worth ranking is partly a factor of whether or not other pages believe in it, whether they sort of voted for it, whether they've passed some credibility to it, whether they have linked. My friend Sonia Simone from Copyblogger says that Google's like the mean girl from high school. To get her to like you, you got to kind of ignore her for a minute and get everyone else to like you first. Just like high school, popularity or trust is partly a function of whether or not the other kids in school were talking to you. Just like when this kid talks about this kid in high school makes this kid more credible. When this web page links to this web page, makes this web page more likely to rank. Now, quantity is of course a factor, and if lots of pages link to, that makes you more credible. I gave that guy a bigger head this time. So more links does equal more authority, but see those little arrows? What matters much more is getting that big arrow. When a really credible, famous, authoritative site links to you, it passes exponentially more credibility and authority. So this is sort of how Google weights the value of links, and it's not really a fair game because super authoritative pages on very credible websites pass exponentially more amounts of authority. It's like a power curve. It's like a log scale, right? There's only less than 100 websites that have a domain authority of 100 on a scale of 1 to 100. And really any brand new website kind of starts out at like a 10 or a 12. So it's probably something like this, like a site with a domain authority in the 80s maybe has 8 times as much authority as a site with domain authority in the 70s. It's that kind of power scale. So you may be immediately wondering, how much authority does your website have? Here's how to find out. These things are measured on a scale of 1 to 100 by software, SEO software, that emulates Google's own algorithm. The software, just like Googlebot, goes and crawls all the websites on the internet and then comes back and tracks all the links between all the websites and creates that interconnected web of trust and says, these websites are very credible, these websites are less credible. And on a scale of 1 to 100, the authority is what? So one of these tools is called Moz, and their metric is called domain authority, capital D, capital A. That's what they call their proxy metric for Google's own algorithm. Google's original metric was called PageRank. So their emulation of PageRank is called domain authority. There's other tools. Ahrefs, they call it domain rating. It's basically the same thing. SEMrush, their metric is called domain score. It's basically the same thing. Alexa, awesome but lesser known tool, amazing, powerful software. Their metric is called competitive power. Basically the same thing. Now these are all paid tools, but there is a way to get this data without having to subscribe to a monthly service, an SEO software service. And that is to use the free version of the Moz tool, which can be added to Google Chrome as an extension. If you search for the Google Web Store, the Chrome Web Store, and find Mozbar, it's the little toolbar that they built that you can add it to Chrome. It's free. And then when you visit a website and turn Mozbar on, it will show you at the top the basic authority metrics, link popularity metrics for that website. So in this case, you can see the domain authority, DA, is a 61. So this number is basically showing you two things. It's showing you the likelihood that pages on that website will rank. And also, at the next level of thinking, not so much a topic for this video, but at the next level of thinking, it's showing you the value of a link from one website to another. Right? Links from higher domain authority websites are passing more credibility than a link from a lower domain authority website. In fact, exponentially more amounts of credibility. But right now we're focused on the likelihood of ranking, because this is the key to SEO. If you're not doing this, you're really not doing SEO. You don't really understand search if you're not taking this into account when you do key phrase research, when you do SEO copywriting, when you build a sitemap for a new website, when you choose target phrases for your homepage. It's just a big part of the game. So what we're going to do this now is to pay attention to domain authority as we estimate competition. Do we have a shot at that key phrase? We're going to estimate competition. Now, it's possible to simply eyeball this and at a glance look at a search results page and estimate competition. Does this search results page have a bunch of ads? If so, it's more competitive. Does this search results page below the ads have a bunch of famous websites? If so, it's more competitive. Do the pages that rank organically, as in below the ads, do they have the target key phrase that you just searched for in the link? In other words, in their title tag? If so, it's more competitive. These are three ways to just basically look at a search results page and say, wow, it's going to be tough. Lots of super famous websites are ranking for this phrase. A better way to do this, not maybe in a category you're less familiar with, would be to turn on Mozbar and do the search. And what Mozbar does is it overlays right onto the Google search results the authority metrics for the websites and web pages that rank. So scanning down, you can see, this is domain authority 32, 32, 88, 80. And it also has the authority of the specific pages, which we'll talk about in a minute. So as you turn on Mozbar and scan through, you'll quickly get a sense for whether or not your site has a chance of competing for that key phrase. If they're all way above your level of authority, then you don't really have a chance. If you do have a subscription to these tools, what they'll do is average out all the authority of the other high-ranking pages and combine them into one score, like a difficulty score. So here you can see the key phrase difficulty for that phrase I searched for was on something like 52. So if you're in the 20s or 30s, low 40s, probably out of reach. If you're in the 50s, 60s, 70s, you maybe have a chance. But I want to get much more specific now and show you an example of how we could really do key phrase research and estimate competition for a specific key phrase against a certain website and their authority. I'm going to use this site. It's the Chicago Beer Experience. I don't know anyone there. It's just a random site. I've used this in presentations before. I'm going to walk you through how we do it now. So if you put this site into Moz, they call their tool now the Link Explorer. This is where we check our own level of authority. So this is our site. We have, I put in our domain and I see that the authority of that page, the home page, is a 33. That also happens to be roughly our domain authority. We'll get into that in a minute. Ask this question. This is going to sound crazy, but bear with me. If you're a sports team that can score 33 sports points at sports ball, what sport should you play? Should you play basketball? No. You're going to lose every basketball game if you can only score 33 points. Should you play hockey? Yes. Play every hockey game you can find because 33 goals is enough to win every hockey game, right? So this is a way to think about that same. I've overlaid some sports icons from different sports on that curve again. And you can see on a scale of 1 to 100, right, how competitive these are. Remember, we have an authority of 33, right? Which means, in our metaphor, we can win some football games. We can win lots of baseball games. So now let's go look at the difficulty for these key phrases. I just put in a one word, they call it a head key phrase, beer. Difficulty, 58. We're at 33. Do we have a chance for this? No, we do not. No, we do not. That's like a very high scoring football game, right? We're not in that league. Don't target that key phrase, right? Not going to happen. I'm going to add another word, making it a longer, less popular, but also much less competitive key phrase. More targeted. Longer key phrases are less popular, less competitive, and more targeted. By adding words, that's what we're doing. So the Chicago bars, difficulty 45. Much less volume, much less people searching for that. Do we have a chance of ranking for that? Really, we don't. 45 is a lot higher than a 33. That's not likely to work out very well for us. We're the Chicago Beer Experience. We take people on tours of bars or something. We're like a pub crawl company. I should look at what they do. How about another one? Chicago Beer Tour. Longer key phrase, less popular, much less competitive, but super targeted, right? We know a lot about the information intent of this visitor. They search for a beer tour, which, by the way, is just what we do. Perfect, right? Right there in that range. A 31 out of 100, we're a 33. Not at all surprised that we rank number 1 for Chicago Beer Tour. Awesome. Get the idea, right? So one of the reasons is that's a great page on the topic. It uses the key phrase. The page is relevant. Relevance is half the game. But the other reason is that we have sufficient authority. Our site is credible enough. We're seen as a trusted resource in Google. Authority. Relevance and authority. That's SEO. Relevance and authority. Big part of the game. So we need to know our domain authority, or whichever tool you use, domain score, domain rating, competitive power. And don't expect to rank for a key phrase if that's way outside your league, right? We're going to box in our weight class. Before we sign off here, I want to bring one last tip and point out it's not really about the domain authority. It's more about the page authority. So to break that down, our domain authority may be, in this case, 43, which sounds great. But what's the authority of the page itself that will end up competing for this key phrase? There's a different report in Moz that will show you the authority of each specific page. And you can see that drop off pretty quick, right? A lot of these pages on this website are going to have domain page authorities in the 30s or lower. So even if our domain authority is 43 and the keywords difficulty is a 30, that it may actually be a kind of a tough fight. So I'm taking you now to the next level of thinking where we realize that it's not the domain that competes for the phrase, it's the page. Google does not rank websites. Google has never ranked a website. Google only ranks web pages. So the battle is fought page by page. That's the game. It's not just about, who's websites don't rank. We have to win at the page level. It's all about my URL versus their URL. Is my page better, higher quality, more exhaustive and comprehensive in its content? Yes or no? Does my page have sufficient competitive power? Is it linked to from enough websites? Is it seen as a credible resource? Or other pages citing my content? That's authority. So content plus links, relevance plus authority at the page level. So that's it. That's the better way to think of it. So I want to leave you with that. It's all about quality, make the best page on the internet, but also it's about having a site that is deserving, has a right to rank, is in that same range. The domain is critically important, and it passes some of its authority down to the specific pages, but ultimately, turn on Mozbar and look, the battle is fought page by page. Hope you found this useful. Again, Andy from Orbit Media. It's really fun to make these. We hope you enjoy them. Share this with anybody who is confused about why they are or aren't ranking. See you on page 1 of Google. Bye-bye.